Hello everyone, my name is Wojciech Waśniewski and you're listening to the Participation Coaching podcast, where I try to explore effective non-performance coaching. So how do we coach beginner, junior and recreational players? My guest is Kate Tempesta. She's the founder, owner and the president of fun at the Kate Tempesta's Urban Golf Academy. They're an extremely successful provider of junior golf activities in New York City. They run weekly after-school programs, summer camps, Central Park classes and much more for kids aged 3 and up. However, the age group between 3 and 8 is their main focus. As of now, and we discuss it later in the interview, there are over 200 children attending their weekly sessions in downtown New York City. They offer golf activities in 25 schools and coach over 300 near-poverty children through their work with various non-profit organizations. Aside from that, Kate also runs multi-sport summer camps with over 1,000 kids attending every summer. It's quite impressive. In other words, Kate really knows what successful junior coaching looks like. She makes an incredible use of her experience in early childhood education and movement, and she's widely acknowledged to be one of the very best junior coaches in America. In this conversation, we discussed Kate's story and how she started playing and coaching golf, the power of movement, Urban Golf Academy's beginnings and results, Kate's junior coaching philosophy, what's a birdism and how Kate uses them in her coaching, age-appropriate coaching and games, growing the game and why we're not supposed to focus on growing the game but growing the child, an example session she might run with 5-year-olds, importance of structure and connection when coaching the youngest children, parents and rules she has during her sessions, marketing strategies, and lastly, Kate introduces some brand new coaching products that anyone interested can get their hands on. I'm very excited to share this interview with you. Hopefully it inspires many of us to develop our offerings for the youngest kids, as golf is an amazing vehicle to grow children this age. Oof, okay, that was a bit long. Let's get into the interview. Okay, what's your background and how did you get started teaching kids?
I started teaching kids in the year 2000. I had moved to the city. I was living in the city for 8 years. I moved because I was in a discipline, athletic training. I studied sports medicine in college, and I wanted to move. I knew I wanted to move to a big city, and so I took a job in a physical therapy clinic down in New York City in 1990. Gosh, it's so long ago. 1994. All right. So I'd only been living in the city 6 years. I lied. And I liked it. I liked the idea of helping people. I liked the idea of understanding who the individual was in order to help them, whether it be rehab their knee, rehab their back. But as it turned out, and the way insurance companies were going and healthcare in general, it just turned into seeing a lot of people in 1 hour and not really being able to make an impact. And that was really frustrating for me. So I kind of segued into working one-on-one with people in a private studio. And I found that much more, it just fed my soul because I was really able to take into account the whole person and interview them and really help them. And it led me to meet this woman who was the director of a nursery school, and she had just had a knee replacement. And so I was working with her 3 times a week. And she, after about 2 or 3 weeks, said, I like your style. And would you ever consider teaching children? And I was kind of dumbfounded. I'm like, never really thought about it. I mean, I certainly love children, and I've coached several sports over the years. Back when I was in college, I'd coached the local soccer team and baseball team, but I never really thought my career would be in working with kids. Needless to say, I tried it 1 day a week and I absolutely fell in love with it. And so I was the creative movement teacher 1 day a week at this private nursery school on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And I didn't really know what creative movement was, but I was a big believer in the power of movement and certainly being an athlete and how important it was to me. And I tried it and I absolutely fell in love with it. And over the course of the next 10 years, I built a curriculum, and it took about 6 months to convince her that this could be more than just 1 day a week. It could be, a full thing. It could be a full curriculum piece. And so she gave me the opportunity to do that. And I fell in love with it. And I brought their classroom to life. So no matter what whatever they were learning, history or art or language, math, I was bringing it to life in 1,000 square feet. And that gave me my summers off. And I started playing golf. I started playing golf at the age of 29, like just shy of my 30th birthday. And it was never a sport that spoke to me growing up. but it did at 30. It did at 30 because so many reasons. One, because I had lost touch with being an athlete. I was living in the city and I just was on the treadmill and I was running and I didn't have a sense of purpose of being an athlete. And when I played it at 29, it really screamed at me. It sort of brought everything together for me. It was a very creative sport. It gave me an opportunity to get outside the city and into obviously a pretty place and on grass. It gave me time spending with my friends. And it was a really good sport for me mentally because I was a very volatile athlete growing up. And so this kind of forced me to, take a look at that and examine the relationship I had with myself and my emotions and how I handled myself after a bad shot and so that I took to that part of the game very, very quickly. And then I just started playing it like a ton. I started playing it more in 5 years than most people play in 50 years. And I found a pro that took me under his wing, and he was the one that encouraged me several years later to consider going into the LPGA teaching division. And after fighting him on it for a couple of years, I finally did it. And that's, I went back to the nursery school and I went back to the director and I said, listen, what would you think about me starting a golf program? I was convinced that I could create the environment and I had the audience, and she let me do that. And so I had 8 kids on a Monday and 8 kids on a Wednesday, and I did that for 2 years. And then we branched out and I started at some other schools. I brought the kids that had graduated from preschool into Central Park, and we started programs there. And then I started hiring coaches, and then I formed a business, and I became an official LLC in 2010. My first golf program was 2008. I became a member in 2007, and I brought golf to little people in 2008. And then I stopped playing business and created a formal business. It's been my 100% of my work since then.
Mm-hmm. Going into a bit of a tangent here, but when you were working at the beginning of your preschool career, what was the effect of bringing the creative movement into all the different, as you said, like you brought to life all the different, let's say, curriculum elements? What was the biggest effect of that?
Well, a deeper learning, I think. I mean, I know. I mean, children learn through play. They learn through experience. I mean, we all do as human beings, right? I mean, the deepest form of learning is through experiencing something. And so rather than, sitting in a classroom and learning numbers or learning how to write or learning letter recognition, whatever it may be, if they were experiencing it through moving their bodies in a certain way or shaping their bodies in a certain way, it was just a deeper learning, and I got to see that over 10 years. Through that, I got to see so many shy kids come out of their shell because, again, play and movement are a language that all children speak naturally. And when you put them in a position and create a really safe and nurturing environment that allows them to do that, it can help their emotional development. It can help their social development, which it weaves into everything, right? So it was so much more than just physical development. And that's where the birth of the whole child philosophy for me, really set in, was seeing how movement has such a power of teaching the whole child.
It's in our DNA as well. Like it's natural for humans.
100%.
So where did the business go? So it was around 7 years ago you started the Urban Golf Academy. So what are the numbers now? Let's say, how many schools do you coach at? How many kids attend your weekly sessions?
So we have our after school programs, which are in schools. So we're in a combination of 25 private schools throughout New York City. We're not in 25 at any one time, but we've been a part of over 25. We might currently be in this January. We're going to be in 18 of those because some of them only have us for particular seasons. And so that's just part of their after school program. The kids could sign on for chess or fencing or soccer or basketball or golf. And that's just never been an option at these schools in New York City because nobody's ever, we literally go into the community and into schools, into weird spaces such as 1,000 square feet or a cafeteria, or if we're lucky, we get a gym, which is rarely the case. We work with 3 nonprofit programs. This January, we will have over 350 kids that are near poverty. We work with the Harlem Children's Zone. We work with Change for Kids, which is an organization that assesses the needs of these urban schools and puts, whether it be art program or physical education. And so we partnered up with them several years ago and offered scholarships, and now we're a part of their offering. Now they bring us in and we deliver programming to over 200 kids in their organization. And then we're also a part of an organization. We partner with Power Play, which is an all-girls 7 to 17. We go in and do 6 to 8 week modules. So that's another aspect of our business. And then we have our direct-to-consumer business, and that's our Central Park program. That's our indoor rented space program. And we have 225 kids currently in that. And then our summer program is big. That's when I go out to Montauk Downs and I spend 11 weeks on the golf course. And I run a very large golf, swim, tennis camp where the morning time from 9 to 2 is really for the younger kids. And it's really discovery based. And it's putting the kids in a really fun environment to learn all these different sports. And then I have my more advanced kids in the evenings, and we see 1,000 kids during the summer. And then I have coaches back in New York City that continue to run programs in the park. We are in several different school camp programs as an offering. And then my favorite program that we do is called June Mini Camp. And that's where we have programs in Central Park where kids sign on for 1 full week, and they come from 9 to 1. And it's golf, it's movement, it's art, it's general movements like physical skills, sport skills. And that is my favorite program because that's when I get to really put on my classroom manager, educator hat and create the learning environment for 4 hours outdoors.
Mm. And you coach kids from the age of 3, am I right?
Yeah, we do a twos program in the spring. So we give the kids a chance to kind of acclimate to their school situation. So by the time we see them in the spring, they're really like 2, almost 3. Mm-hmm. And that is a very specialized program. Like I have very few coaches that I'll put on a program like that. And it's usually myself included just because it's such a nuanced, obviously like a barely 3-year-old is very, very different. But as soon as the kids reach 3, 3.5, 4, that's when we start putting them in the groups. And we maintain a 4-to-1 student-teacher ratio. And our entire curriculum is built on keeping the child engaged the entire time. So nobody's standing around waiting to hit the ball. We give them an activity that's very, very child-centric that they can be engaged in, that's either reinforcing the concept that we're trying to coach them through, or it's just plain old child-centric activity, like a coloring sheet of a particular birdieism we might use, which a birdieism is a metaphor for birdie being our mascot. Birdieism is a metaphor that we use to teach the fundamentals of golf. So let's say, for example, I'm teaching the child that the ball and the club are best friends. That's sort of our birdieism and trick for getting the child to line the club face up behind the ball, because square club face is not a term that a 3-year-old's going to understand. Sure. But they certainly understand that the ball and club are best friends, and it's like you're lining up at school. You don't want to touch your friend, and they get it. They get it right away. And so while they might be working on that concept, the child that's partnered with them might be coloring a sheet that has the picture of birdie and the club and the ball are best friends, that when it's their turn to get up and do it, they do it. So again, it's tying in the whole child and creating a really deep learning environment.
Mm-hmm. And it's not too many coaches coach this age group, especially like from 3 to 7, I would say. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's the misconception that it can't be done and that it's babysitting, and that's just flat out wrong. What's not wrong is if you identify yourself as not wanting to teach this age group, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, understand your skill set and don't even try. But there is somebody near you that would want to do this and can do this. And there are tools, there are tricks that can absolutely keep these children engaged and can teach them the building blocks, coach them and guide them through the building blocks of what could be a lifelong sport. And even if they don't play golf in the next 5 years, who cares? That what they're learning in these moments, what they're learning in this 8-week semester is so important. And I think that's where the golf industry, that's where I kind of have an issue with it, right? So we want to grow the game, we want to grow the game, we want to grow the game. And that's all great. That's a great stance and initiative. However, I think by flipping that switch to let's grow the child and let's take our great game that undeniably has amazing coaching moments for the whole person, the human, and let's use our great sport to do that, and let's see what happens. Because I think that if we can turn kids on through a whole child approach, you're going to get a lot more kids that stay in the game. And so I think the expectation of certain people that want to teach 3 to 7-year-olds, let's say, okay, they get on board and they don't think it's just babysitting. Well, now let's talk about expectations. Let's talk about what is a 3 and a 4 and a 5-year-old capable of, and what are our expectations? They're not going to be, what's the process that we need to deliver so that it's really delivered in an age-appropriate way? What game can I play with a 5-year-old that's not going to turn them off because it's an elimination game and you've just totally upset them, and now it becomes this emotional wreck because you just eliminated this 5-year-old from a putting game. Yeah. So how can we build our games? How can we educate more golf professionals? How can we give them the tools and the skills to actually, it's a really fun age group to teach. And again, if you don't want to do it, then that's great. No judgment. But at least open your mind up to a different way of doing it and having the right expectations. And I think, and I've seen it with golf pros where we're able to flip the switch. Like, wow, I thought this was babysitting and it's not. Like, I see that you're building the fundamentals of the golf game, but we're just not using golf jargon and we're not doing traditional golf activities, but we're getting kids in love. Mike Hebron says I'm in the romance period. Like, I get kids to fall in love with the game. And I think if more golf professionals could create that space for either their current audience or an audience they haven't even captured yet, I think the needle could move more and more. I'd like to see more decision makers. I'd like to see more, the big people making the decisions to really embrace a different way of doing things and creating a space for little ones, creating a space for not just little ones, but like, the 8-year-old that has never played golf, is not an athlete, is kind of socially awkward, a little bit shy. How do we capture those kids? How do we create a safe and nurturing whole child approach to teaching and coaching and guiding through a game that we all adore because of what it's done for us, personally and professionally? Forget professionally, just personally. Like, how golf has had an impact on who I am as a person is tremendous. And why not take the stance of like, wow, how do we get more kids? How do we get more human beings playing this game? And it's not about how do we get more kids on the golf course playing golf. How can we make better human beings by bringing them this awesome sport and teaching PGA and LPGA professionals and parents and other people how to make that difference and how to create that environment? I think it's a very untapped market. I think too much focus is on growing the game and too little focus is on growing the child. That's why I love Lynn and Pia. I mean, Lynn and Pia are just totally brilliant. They're totally brilliant, and good for them for, thinking outside the box and doing things differently. They teach human beings. They want to create human beings that happen to be playing golf. It's the same thing that I do. I want to empower children, and I want to help create an environment that grows better children, better human beings. And we just so happen to be doing it through this awesome sport, golf.
Amazing. So you said that for the younger kids, we need to adapt golf and adapt the activities that we do for what they are able to do, actually. Mm-hmm. I've heard a quote from you that you said that we have to create golf that they can wrap their minds around, which I really liked. So what would one of your sessions for one of the younger age groups, so let's say like 4 and 5-year-olds, what would it look like? It's an hour long, and what sort of activities do you do on like an average session, let's say, as an example?
Well, no matter what age group we teach, we always start with our 2 key components to what every single class, and that's one is circle time. I mean, that is where the magic happens, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Circle time, every single class, and then movement. Those 2 things I think are absolutely critical. So let's say we're in the park and kids come in, we've got 12 kids. They enter in, we sit in a circle. It's our time to build trust, build connection, ask them about their day. This is where we really get to connect and show our empathy and listen. It's about every human being wants to be heard. And I think that when you can put children in a really safe and nurturing environment where they feel heard and they get to speak their mind. And it could be as simple as like, hey, how was your day? How was your Christmas? What was your favorite present? Tell me about it. It makes a huge difference. And not only does it make a huge difference as far as building connection and trust, it also gives you information that you're going to use in your lesson. So let's say, for example, Kate comes in and my favorite toy was a Spider-Man toy. Well, that's going to inform me as to a game that I might create in the putting station that has to do with Spider-Man. So then the target becomes, the bad guy, and Spider-Man is me, the putter. So it gives me information that I'm going to use in either a future lesson or that particular day. So I'm getting information. I'm building trust. I'm creating a sense of engagement and connection. It's where I use my sense of humor a little bit. And then we break out into a movement game. And the movement game could be a big group game. It could be a simple obstacle course that ties in perhaps a parallel skill. So they're running and jumping and zigzagging, and then they have to throw a ball where they're working on their sequence. But of course, I'm not talking about sequence. It's just getting them to do it naturally. I might be getting them to understand the idea of a chip shot, and that it's not, the length of swing is only so far. So they might run and jump and zigzag and go over things and then kind of toss a ball to a target. So we're working on a parallel skill. And then we'll break up into, depending on how large the class is, we'll break up into 2 or 3 different groups. And some will go and putt. 4 kids will go and putt. 4 kids will stay at the full swing station. And 4 kids will stay at what we call the medium swing station. We break it out in small, medium, and big swing. That's it. There's no pitch shot for a 4-year-old. They don't have the gross motor skills. Or even a 5-year-old. And then each station is about creating games. So in the very beginning of a class, let's say it's the 4-year-old that's coming for the first time in the spring semester, one of our classic games is train track putting. We draw a train track in chalk on the sidewalk. We have our magic shoes, which is a birdieism. The kids get on their magic shoes. They're automatically lined up to the target sideways. It's instant success. We don't have to talk to them about it. We don't have to like move their feet and manipulate them. We just say, hey, Kate, go ahead and get on your magic shoes. And then they just naturally find them. And then we tie in our birdieisms. Ball and club are best friends. And they get the club face behind the ball. We work on a little swing. And everything is a game. So the target becomes something. The target is the barn, and we're trying to get the barn animals back into the barn. And as they're moving farther away from the target, we talk about the length of swing or the energy or the tempo. We talk about different animals, different speeds being different tempos, and they experiment with how that translates into, the putt and distance control. Then we have an entire curriculum with, gobs of games that have to do with all of these concepts. So what I like about it so much is that, that you can play, I can set up the structure. I can set up the same structure of a game, let's say over an 8-week curriculum that will give them what we would call that blocked practice, right? Where they consistently get to reinforce, this is where you put your feet. This is how you line up the ball. This is what you do. But we're giving them that random practice just by swapping out the theme. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So like one day they think they're putting to the planets, they think they're an astronaut, and then the next day they're doing the same exact structure, but now they're putting race cars into the pit because the tire is flat. And so it's tapping into their creativity, it's tapping into their imagination, and it's stretching them that way, but it's giving them that blocked practice of, when I putt, I have to put my feet here, and I have to put the club behind the ball here. And as the kids get older, then we get a little bit deeper. We delve deeper into the concepts. Kids might stay in each particular area for 8 to 10 minutes, and then we transition. And they go to the medium swing, the full swing, and then we always wrap up with a circle. Again, time to reflect, time to connect, and time to end on a positive note so that these kids want to come back.
So it's quite important to have the structure around the sessions with the young kids. Right?
100%. I mean, it's important. We all crave structure, right? I mean, you wouldn't teach an adult any other way. You'd go in and set goals, and that's your circle time. That's time when like, hey, how you doing? What difficult meeting did you just come from? And let's set some goals for today. And then at the end, you reflect. This is what we worked on, and this is your homework, and let's look forward to our next lesson. I mean, it's all the same stuff. It's teaching. It's coaching. It's the magic of coaching. It's the magic of education, whatever it may be.
what's the role of the parents in your academy, like in your sessions? Because I think I've seen somewhere on your website that you have some strict rules on what parents can and can't do during the sessions.
Yeah, for the younger kids, we understand that this is a time in their life when they might be entering into a group situation like this for the first time, certainly with the little ones. And so we allow maybe on the first day for the kids for the children, especially if somebody's having like a major separation issue, then of course, let's have mom here for 5 or 10 minutes. And when they feel comfortable, but generally we keep a rule where they need to be 50 yards away. And now we don't get 100%, we don't get 100% participation in that. And so we have to have some pretty difficult conversations. But, by and large, we have people, it's pretty clear on my website what our philosophy is. And I don't want to sound too cavalier or cocky saying this, but if people don't like the philosophy, that there's another golf pro down the street. Like I will not be inauthentic to my philosophy and my mission, which is to create an environment that's child-centric. And I believe that process happens away from the parent. I mean, I've seen it time and time again. When the parent's around, the child is totally different. This is their process. It's not the parent's process. And if the parent has a problem because we're using plastic clubs or because, they're not chipping as well as they should be, then I've got no problem saying, hey, you know what? There's somebody else down the street that's going to match up, to what you want and need. I don't believe that that's the right process, but if that's what you need, and we're in New York, so we get a lot of type A, intense parents where they have their kids in every single activity known to mankind and no time to stare at the walls. And so little Johnny at 3.5 should be chipping. And that's just not my philosophy. So,
is there something that you tried in the program in your curriculum that didn't really work?
That's a great question. It's a great question. I had to think about that a little. I mean, I'm sure there are.
Maybe something you experimented with, or
I don't think so. I think, okay. I mean, and the only other thing that I'd have to say about that is, I try to encourage this in my other coaches, and I try to build a team that believes and embraces the same philosophy. Is that it's okay to experiment, and it's okay to try things, and it's okay to fail. This is not, we know this, right? It's not a failure. We're just sure, there are things that I've put out there that probably didn't go as well as I'd like, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, 99% of the time, I'm still doing it. We just do it better. We just do it better the next day or the next semester or the next year or the next whatever. So I think those moments are important to maintain that. I always want to have a canvas, like 20% of my time that I get to just sort of experiment. Like this year we're experimenting. I'm going back to my movement roots, and we're experimenting with doing movement classes and birdie moves. We're going to call it birdie moves. And it's totally going back to my roots. It's like engaging kids through creative movement and then getting them right into the golf program.
Awesome.
So I don't know. We'll talk to you in about 6 months. We'll see if it fails, but I don't think
I don't think so. So what's your one last question around the business side of things? What's your main marketing strategy? How do you get kids into the programs, apart from, let's say, the school stuff, which obviously go through some nonprofits? And
it's a lot of word of mouth at this point. I mean, I was at a school for 10 years, and we still have about 75 families from this one particular school. And you have to understand, like in New York, these nursery schools, kids graduate and then they go to their ongoing private schools. So if I've got 75 kids that are 4 years old that graduate and now they're going to 30 different schools, I've just become viral in those 30 different schools. So a huge part of my business is maintaining the relationship that I had and have with this particular school that I was at for 10 years. That's huge. I run focus groups with moms to see what they want and to, tap into how I can add value. We do some guerrilla marketing with flyering. We always auction season. All these schools have auctions, and we always donate to these auctions so that we're top of mind when it comes to silent auction, and dad's walking around having his cocktail and seeing, $200 credit to Urban Golf Academy, and sees that there's a possibility of getting their child. So we do that. And this year I have a guy I'm bringing on board in January, and he He's very well versed in social media. So I hope to, my goal is to have him really create a more solid and consistent presence on social media. And that's more to build the business worldwide, right? Not just in New York. A lot of parents, just in the social media that I do, a lot of parents are following what we do on Instagram. It's kind of fun to see, to do like a little live video or show them pictures of their child in the park swinging. So all of that.
Awesome. So how can other coaches get, not involved, but how can they use the program? I know you offer some licensing services, but also there's a new product coming up. If you want to talk about it for a sec.
Yeah. So we're calling them birdie bundles, birdie boxes, and then we're going to have booster packs associated with it. So these are props that I've been using for years now, and I've always had on my to-do list and grand plans was to create a prop kit that I could then market to other professionals, because it's working here in New York. It can work anywhere, right? And so there are going to be 3 to 5 different boxes that you can purchase. And in the box are going to be these 2 to 3 props that you can use with, actually more than 2 to 3, I'm sorry, like 4 to 6 props that you can use with groups of, you can use it in an individual lesson with a child. You can use it in a group of 4. You can use it in a group of 8. And these are all the props that we've been using. Along with that, you will get a code that you will be able to go on to teachable.com. It's a website where I create different courses, and you'll be able to we're going to drip content in, like, what games you can play with this one prop, and what 10 games can you play with that prop, and what 20 games can you play with these 2 props together. And then there'll be an instruction booklet, and you'll buy the bundle, but then you'll also get a subscription to this website where you'll be able to really see. I mean, for me, I think it's a great window in what we do every single day. I mean, this is our 365 days a year. We teach 3 to 8-year-old children. So we're kind of the petri dish. What works here in New York can work anywhere else, and we want to share that with the world, and we want more kids becoming empowered through what I think is a really solid and fun and whole child approach to guiding a child through the game of golf.
That's great. I can't wait to get my hands on one of the bundles or even more of them. I've seen the kit on some of the images you posted and the videos, and I can't wait to use it actually with my kids in the junior.
Well, I have 25 ready for the PGA show. So the first 25 people to buy them, they'll have an hour with me at the show, just personally. Like, I'll teach them all the ins and outs of the box. So they can email me at kate@ktuga.com, and I can give them more information. But it's fun stuff. It's fun, and it's powerful learning.
Awesome. That's great. Kate, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
This is Wojciech again. Thanks for listening. If you don't want to miss any future episodes in this junior series, subscribe to the podcast or sign up to the mailing list. You can find all the links on ParticipationCoaching.com/subscribe. If you have any suggestions on future guests or just any feedback on the podcast in general, feel free to shoot me an email at hi@ParticipationCoaching.com. Thanks for listening again, and I'll hear you next time. Music in this episode came from bensound.com.